January 2022, and just like to start off by wishing members a happy new year and all that goes with it. Look forward to the year coming ahead. I can I hand over to Denise for the notice of summons and members' attendance.
Yep, thank you, Chair. We'll go straight on to members' attendance. Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman David Ramsey. Councillor Raymond Barr.
Sorry, here, Denise.
Thanks, Raymond. Councillor Michaela Boyd.
And Shaw, here, Denise.
Councillor Sean Carr.
Here, Denise.
Councillor Emmett Doyle.
Here, Denise.
Councillor Stephen Edwards.
And Shaw, Denise.
Councillor Paul Fleming.
Shaw, Denise.
Councillor Paul Gallagher. Councillor Patricia Logue.
And Shaw.
Councillor Philip McKinney.
Here, Denise.
Councillor Maeve O'Neill.
Here, Denise.
Councillor Martin Riley.
Here, Denise.
Councillor Lillian Sino Barr. Thank you, members. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Denise. Next is item 3, which is the statement for remote meetings. I would like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and the media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purposes of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website, www.derrystrabane.com. Item 4 is declaration of members' interest. It's in the chat box here for McCartan.
Chair, I have a pecuniary interest in item 7 that my employer is one of the respondees to the expression of interest. I'm just wondering, do I have to leave the meeting during item 7 or do I stay on, Chair?
It's, I don't think it's a direct interest, as a member.
It's not a direct interest in terms of that piece of work, but I do work for the firm that that expressed an interest in the carrying out the audit into the community groups.
But nothing was submitted.
Nothing was submitted yet, correct?
No, I think you're fit to stay.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Chairperson business, none. Item 6, any matters arising from the minutes, 15th of November 2021. No, none in the chat box. Let's see, Paul Fleming has expressed an interest in item 7 as well. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item 7, procurement of external resources. Denise, you taking this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to provide you with an update on the recent procurement exercise completed to procure external support to carry out the independent audits. Members will be aware of the motions passed at the full council meeting on the 27th of May in relation to the range of projects and interventions put in place to assist communities over the COVID-19 pandemic and on the governance and recruitment procedures in all community groups in receipt of council funding over the past 5 years. At the Assurance Audit and Risk Committee in September, members approved the terms of reference for both exercises. And following the ratification of this decision at the full council meeting in September, officers reviewed the procurement options available to progress this work, and a decision was taken to invite tenders for this process via a public sector procurement framework. The advantages of using that framework are outlined there in the report for members' information. In terms of the framework, members, there was 20 suppliers registered in one of the lots, which was the most appropriate lot for our work. We contacted the 20 suppliers to gauge interest, and 8 of the 20 confirmed that they were interested in the tender. As a result of this, the tender was issued to the 8 companies who expressed an interest. The tenders was issued to the companies via the eTenders.gov website on the 6th of October with a deadline for return on the 29th of October. A number of companies did submit clarification questions, and responses were issued to those on the 25th of October, but members are advised that no tender returns were received for this exercise. During November and December, officers sought to receive feedback on the tender process. We contacted the 8 companies who initially expressed an interest in the tender to try to ascertain why no bids were submitted. None of the companies contacted provided formal feedback. Further to this, members, I made direct contact with a number of the companies to try to obtain some informal feedback, and I did obtain some informal feedback from some of the companies, and some of the reasons provided are outlined below as to why the companies didn't submit a tender for the work. Based on the informal feedback provided, members, the risk of receiving no submissions if the tender is reissued would be extremely high. On consideration of this, we would suggest that if members wish to proceed with this exercise, the terms of reference should be reviewed and the scope of the work refined prior to the commencement of a second procurement exercise. The implications, members, there are outlined, and I know we have spoke about those before. In terms of the recommendations, it is recommended that members note the contents of the report and the work done to date. Subject to members' view on recommendation 1, and in light of the informal feedback received, if members wish to proceed with this process, it is recommended that a task and finish working group is set up to consider and revise the scope of the terms of reference. Should members agree to the establishment of a task and finish working group in order to consider the best way forward to progress with this process, it is recommended that the attendance of this group broadly reflects the political diversity of the council. And finally, members, subject to the above recommendations being agreed, it is further recommended that the revised terms of reference is then brought back to a future meeting of the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee prior to the commencement of a procurement exercise. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that, Denise. Before I put it to the floor, I think that one is to thank the officers for the work that's been done to date, and what it looks like is that process has been exhausted, i.e. no one has come in with a tender, and I think that my own opinion would be is in the past, and since this council has been operating the last 6 years, one of the best ways of trying to work things out is through working groups such as task and finishing groups. Hindsight is a great thing, and maybe we might have put this to a task and finishing group first, but such was the need to move forward on us. We moved out to tender. That hasn't come forward, but I would be of the opinion the best way to try and progress this is to set up a task and finishing group, and where possible, maybe if it was made up of the members of this committee, so that we can get a census on the best way going forward. It's, for me, we've got 2 options: that option, or the work doesn't get carried forward, therefore it ceases. So I think that the best way forward is to take the recommendation, but I'll put it out to members if anyone wants to comment.
All I put in the chair, in the box, I wish to speak, if that's okay, Chair.
Come on ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I see there was 8 expressions of interest, but part of it was we don't seem to be able to have quantified the length of time it would take for the audit, and also what was the maximum price would have been paid if the tender had been taken on board. Because I also see that one of the expression of interest had stated that the average cost per day would have been £1,000 for £150. So are we saying here it wouldn't have been cost effective anyhow for the council at that rate? And I tend to agree with what Paul has said. I think we might end up having to go along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Philip. I think Philip, some of the difficulties we had is this was very open-ended. This was, you know, and we sort of had discussions on this previously. How long was this going to take? And some of that hasn't been defined. And I think that's where the task and finishing group could be far more specific and detailing the piece of work and detailing the criteria and the remit that would make it much easier for companies who are in this game to actually submit a tender based on a fine remit of what the task is. And to date, we haven't got that. So I don't think they want to touch it. Any other members want to come in? No? Well, the recommendation.
Chair, I'll come on.
Go ahead, Patricia.
Sorry, 1 minute just. No, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Denise, for that report. I suppose, look, it'll be of no surprise that, in our opinion, what has come back here isn't surprising. If you know, the tender went out and the organisations looked at it and seen it for what it was. And in the words I can say of a very famous old comedy duo, this is another fine mess you've got us into, comes to mind. But anyhow, we have no problem with the task and finish group, if that is how this is going to bring this to a conclusion. The financial aspect of this, and we are near the writs, striking the writ, and we will have all seen the papers and the great challenges that are in those papers as we stand already. And we all have great aspirations for the whole council area, but in particular our own council areas that we represent. And a lot of proposals and motions that are brought and things that we want to get done cost money, and that money does not come out of thin air. That money comes out of the writs that the citizens of the districts that we represent are paying for. And when we are proposing things within council, we need to have cognizance of that. And be aware that we need to stand up to the mark whenever writs are being struck. Not that we would have seen in the past where people had grandiose ideas and then not prepared to stand up and be counted when it needed to. But anyhow, that's by the by. But on top of this, this would have cost a very large amount of repairs money. And let's be clear here, that's what it is, repairs money. Doing something on a tittle-tattle of people who are out there who in fact should know better and be more responsible in their dealings with people. But however, just to finish off, no problem to a task and finish group, and we will be represented at it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Patricia. Look, we're tasked with taking forward the corporate position of this council.
Paul, I don't need a lecture for you. I've said, don't you
well,
lecture me, Paul. Thank you.
I'm talking to all the members here. And some of the corporate positions of council we agree with and some we don't. But that's what we're tasked to doing. And you see, for assurance, audit and risk, you can't put a value on it. It's one of the most important things that council does. And we, as
you're right there, Paul, but can I just say, we don't have to do it doubly. It's already done.
Well, that's your opinion. And the corporate position, we're tasked to taking it forward.
My opinion, it's fact.
Any other members want to come in?
Chair, can I come on if you wouldn't
Emmett,
mind?
you want to come on, Emmett?
Thank you. And just to echo your sentiments, Happy New Year to all members and staff. Just to comment on what Patricia had said there, particularly in my own motion, which was subject to one of these tenders, just to put on record that actually Sinn Féin supported it when it came to full council for a start. And two, the information that I receive from organisations and constituents in my district is not tittle-tattle. They're there, as I am, to raise concerns that are legitimate based on information that I'm given and that organisations have. Can't comment on the other motion, but I was happy to vote for it at the time. So if people want to demean what our constituents and organisations in the districts that we serve and refer to it as tittle-tattle, is it any wonder that their political parties are in crisis? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a recommendation on the floor. Are we happy to move forward on it?
Let's second your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Anyone opposing it? No, thank you. We move on to
Chair, do you mind if I just come in there for a moment?
come on ahead, John.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for letting me in. Chair, if members are minded to set up the working group, do you just want to give us some direction on the nature of the working group? I think you mentioned, Chair, the possibility of it being open to all of Audit Committee. But we would just maybe need some direction on whether members wish to pick up that proposal or whether it's some other makeup, just so we can advance with it.
I think I was going to stick, John, with the protocol, of like one from each party and one from the independent. But I was sort of given more preference to the people that are across it and have been across the many discussions. If it was coming from the members of Audit, Risk and Assurance, that it might be better if that was possible.
Well, Chair, it's entirely a matter for members. Obviously, to date, we have working groups that are the majority of our working groups are one from each party plus one independent member, but we have at least 2 working groups with membership open to all members of council. And obviously, if you wish to have this as membership of all members of Audit Committee, it simply requires a proposal and a seconder, and we can take it from there.
I think it would be beneficial maybe if, and I'll make the proposal that all members of Assurance, Audit and Risk. Anyone objecting to that? No?
Not again.
Okay.
Chair.
Thank
Sure.
you, Philip.
Sorry, Chair, to jump on there. The only reason why I'm thinking different is that I think that the second motion originally came from Councillor Harkin, and maybe he would want to play a role. Maybe his party colleague might be able to maybe get his view on that. I just don't want to make sure that he's not excluded from the process, because I know he was passionate about that motion. Thank you.
I think his party colleagues on this. Yes.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I think like if the working group was open to all council members, and that would give him that opportunity. I'm sure that the Audit, Risk and Assurance group would be well represented within that. Alternatively, like I can always be, if for anything that Councillor Harkin needs or would like to raise within the working group, I can also be that. I can also do that as his party colleague. So I'm happy for. I think my preference would be for all council members, but I'd be happy if the group here just wished for it to be Audit, Risk and Assurance, then that's fine.
Anyone else, any thoughts on it? Someone come on there. Martin?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just have a concern, I suppose, in the format of a working group, that it's all the members of the committee, just on the basis that whatever the task and finish recommendations would be, is going back to the same people again. I think that might be just not the right appropriate way to move things forward. So, I'm conscious what Councillor O'Neill said in relation to allowing other people who aren't on the audit committee who might want to speak to this item being available to it. So I think we need to either go with all the 40 members of council or go with the process of what we've done in the past, which is one member from each of the political bloc and then one from the independents, because otherwise I think if you go for all the members of the audit committee, you'll be meaning that whatever recommendations the task and finish group come back with, it's reporting back to the same people. Or alternatively, you're blocking off people like Councillor Harkin, who had been the proposer of one of the motions. So to be fair to everybody, I think we need to either have the smaller group or the full 40 councillors. One of those two options would be, I think, the best way forward, rather than the full audit committee. But Chair, I'm not fixed either way on it. Whatever other members feel is the most appropriate way to progress it we're happy with.
Okay, I think just my initial thought was it might take a number of meetings, and we didn't want it getting convoluted and members attending and then members not attending. But I'm happy to go with the proposal that we leave it open-ended to all members. Everyone happy with that? Anyone disagreeing with that?
So Chair, sorry for interrupting, Chair, but there is a proposal on the floor which has been seconded. So you maybe want to withdraw that proposal before you put another proposal. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, yes, that's what I'm saying in the roundabout way, John. So I withdraw that proposal then. Look, I'm just trying to get a consensus across the members rather than make it argumentative.
Chair, if I could just come in here, I think from our point of view, we would rather just the audit and risk committee be part of the task and finish group. Just one from each group and independence. However, I am aware that there are smaller parties out there and there may be an independent who can't attend on that particular day or whatever. So it might be an idea, for instance, if Councillor O'Neill can't go, that she can nominate Sean Harkin to go in her place so that there's somebody there from that group in there. And the same with the independents. So do you think we need to keep this, like working groups, task and finish groups are naturally small. So and that's to enable a good, for the work to get done and then take it back and speak to whoever we have to speak to, and then bring it to full council or the relevant committee. So that's the way forward. I would be suggesting, that somebody could stand in for a particular councillor if they're not able to come in that day. But I do think we best keep it to those that are over the full detail of the issue.
Okay, thank you. Any other member thoughts? John?
Yeah, I would agree with Patricia, because normally these committees, Paul, are normally small to start with. Simply because there's a task of work to be done and a smaller group can get a bit of headway on it. But I wouldn't, like Patricia said, if the smaller parties wanted to co-opt someone else on if they weren't available, I wouldn't have an issue with that either. But task and finish groups are normally, quite small, and I think we should attempt to deal with it in this committee now. And if there's if we don't make headway on it, then we can always look to widen the membership.
Okay, I think if we're moving this forward, what we're talking about is that the task and finishing group is made up of this committee and be open where necessary to members who wish to participate, but we will keep it initially in assurance, audit and risk. Is that correct, members?
Who wish to participate are there in place of the nominated person if they can't make it on that particular day.
Yes, Chair, may I come in, please?
Yes, Philip.
Yeah, I would agree with what Patricia said. The wording would need to be quite important. It would have to be somebody substituting for someone from the same party that is already on Insurance and Audit Committee that can't attend this, just to keep it down. Otherwise, I'd be frightened, Chair, that, you know, we have our 14 and then somebody contacts you and says, I want to be on it, and then I want to be on it, and then I want to be on it, and we're back to.
Okay,
Right.
we'll have the caveat at the end with allowances for substitutes for members. Nominated substitutes, that is. Yes? Okay, thank you, everyone. Move on to item 8, the risk review report.
Thanks, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you and to seek your endorsement on the ongoing risk review processes in accordance with our Council's risk management strategy, and to provide an update on the service risk register reviews which have been completed in the period from April to December. As members will see in the report, a number of risk registers were reviewed during that period, and they're outlined there below for members' information. Each of those service risk registers details the potential risk which may prevent the delivery of service objectives. And members are advised that all service areas reviewed have taken into account potential risks associated with the current pandemic, and the risk registers have been revised to detail the controls and actions in place. A number of completed risk registers are attached there for members' information. Upon review of all the registers, members will note that all risks identified have controls in place, and where there are high scoring risk, further action plans are in place to ensure that all efforts are being taken to mitigate against the risk occurring. Members will see there we have pulled together a report which details all the current and high scoring risks and that have been included on those risk registers since April, and those are all summarised there below again for members' information. But again, just to reiterate that there's action plans in place for all of those risks. From an assurance point of view, we're happy to provide members with that assurance that action plans are in place and controls are in place to mitigate the risks and to take that forward. Happy to take any comments or questions on that report, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. I'll just bring in Brona there first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Denise, for that report and all the work that went into it. Chair, I just want to ask a question in relation to the digital services risk register, and I see and I very much welcome the anticipation of an audit on cybersecurity. As we all know, cybersecurity is a huge risk for every organisation these days, and I was wondering if it would be possible to see the results of that audit come back to the Audit and Assurance Committee in due course. Thank you, Chair.
Brona, you want to respond to this?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Brona, for that. Brona, as you're aware, cybersecurity is obviously a huge risk for us at the minute, and there's a lot of action being taken to mitigate that risk. A cybersecurity audit is being scoped at the minute, and it will be a joint exercise with all the councils, and the objective of which is to determine and identify any weaknesses and to address any issues that have been identified. Now, at the minute, there's no timeframes for that, but we are liaising with the Digital Services Manager in relation to that, and we're happy to bring that report back into the Assurance, Audit and Risk Committee once that's completed.
Thank you very much.
Patricia?
Thank you, Chair. Denise, I don't think this item needs proposed, but I just want to welcome it and accept it, and just to say from our perspective, thank you very much for all the hard work that has gone into these registers. COVID has certainly provided a lot of challenges throughout this last number of years, and it's good to see that these risk registers have been updated to take all that into consideration. So thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Philip, you'd like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Denise, I'm just a bit, thank you very much for the report. I'm very concerned about the city deal that's in red there, and it's quite high. And I see there's been a review. Have any update on that review? I've seen a review date there. Maybe I picked it up wrong. Just bear with a second to have a quick check on that. Yeah, review date 18th to 10th last year. What sort of, can you give us a sort of an update of the outcome of that review, considering the I mean, you're talking over the 20s in the risk category there?
Yeah, Philip, happy to do so. The City Deal Risk Register is a new risk register that has just been developed now that the City Deal Board has commenced. Now that register has, as I said, has just been developed, so it's very natural that you would see a lot of high scoring risks until that work progresses. There is a risk workshop scheduled with the City Deal Board now, Philip, at the start of February, and you will start to see a number of those risks coming down, I would imagine, once the board reviews them. But as I said, because it's a very new risk register, it's very normal to see the risks at that high level. But once this risk workshop takes place, then I'm sure those risks will come down, Philip, and we can present that to the next one. But I think maybe the Chief Executive might have more information on that as well.
I'll bring John on there. On that.
Yes, Chair, thanks for bringing me in. And yeah, just to reinforce what Denise has said, obviously, Councillor McKinney, we've brought a number of reports, including a very detailed report to the December Governance Committee meeting on City Deal, and indeed a parallel report on capital projects and resourcing around all of that. And we've had a number of joint meetings of the Capital Projects Working Group and the City Deal Working Group over the last number of months as well, primarily to discuss the resourcing and the finance issues. So all of that is in abeyance at this moment in time. I would say the risk is reducing as we speak. And we have put in place quite a few mitigations in order to manage that risk going forward. But as members know, the resourcing and financing question is probably the biggest and most considerable strategic discussion that's currently underway within Council, and will fall out over the next number of months when we ascertain the direction of travel with regard to both the rates estimates discussions, the airport discussions, and the rate support grant discussion. So this is all still a work in progress. However, I would like to give assurance to members that it's broadly in hand at this moment in time and has been mitigated through those various reports, working groups, and indeed the City Deal Board. Thank you.
Risk will remain high till we see the money in the bank account. All right. Any more members? No.
Chair, could I come in, Councillor Edwards? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to thank the officers. I think I look at risks nearly on a daily basis myself, but I think this is very, very good and well laid out. And this is probably maybe not directly related to this committee, Chair, but in terms of the City Deal that Councillor McKinney highlighted there, I know that the resources is an issue, but also the budgets. In terms of the contingency provision, it's probably one for Chief Executive. Is it a 10% contingency that's built into the City Deal, or is it more than that? I just wanted to ask the Chief Executive in terms of the contingency provision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Would you like to respond?
Thanks, Chair. It all depends on the project, Councillor Edwards, and I know where you're coming from with regard to contingency at the moment and the inflationary costs, particularly construction inflation. So there is considerable optimism bias built into all of the projects at this stage. What I would say in terms of the current phase, which is the development of the OBCs, there is sufficient budgetary cover to enable us to deliver the OBCs. The key issue then will be the delivery of the projects, and through the OBC analysis, the contingency required for each project will be subject to detailed consideration. So at this stage, as the OBCs are being developed, the contingency for each hasn't yet been fixed. But as we move through that process, obviously each will be looked at, and there are 18 in total OBCs requiring to be developed. Each project will have a differing level of optimism bias or contingency in old language, as we used to call it.
You okay, Stephen, with that?
Yep. Thanks, the Chief Executive.
Right.
Makes sense. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. There's no others. We'll move on to item 9, which is the audit and assessment report.
Thanks, Chair. Item 9 is there for members' information. There's no decision to be taken on that one, and just to advise members, it's an update on the improvement audit and assessment report for 2021, which is carried out by the local government auditor. Members are advised that this report was endorsed by the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee on the 4th of January, but best practice would dictate that if it goes to governance, it also goes to audit committee. So this report is just for members' information.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Any members' comments? No, take it as noted. Okay, thank you. Members, that brings the meeting to an end. Thank you very much for your attendance and see you bi-monthly.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.